Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to the Fitness Business Life podcast. I am joined today with none other than my current jiu-jitsu coach, Damien Mulgrave. Damien, what about you, brother?
How are you, sir? All good, all good.
Living the dream as always. First things first, do me a solid here. If you get value from this episode, which I know for sure you will, please share it with a friend. We grow this thing organically. We don't run ads. We don't do anything like that. We rely on people subscribing and sharing these with a friend. Only if you get value from the conversation. Obviously, if you don't, just fucking tell me to do one and sail off into the sunset. We don't care around here. What other side note? Yes, so we're filming this in the gym. So if you hear any background noise, any weights smashing about or anything like that, just it's real life. This is what we're dealing with right now. Anyways, Damien, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, of course, mate. So, we always have, I would say, like pretty, after you pretty much beat the life out of me most of the time on the mats, we'll usually sit down and we'll talk about some of the topics that we're going to cover here today. But first things first, I would like for our listeners to get to know a bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
Sure, 100%.
So you grew up in Belfast?
Yeah, grew up in Belfast. Standard primary education, went to St Malachy's, fell off a cliff when I was 10. That was a pivotal moment. I was 10 years of age and ended up falling 100 odd feet off a cliff in Ballycastle and
Jeez.
Severed my leg. So my left leg was hanging off above the ankle. Lucky I landed in a space of water. I don't know if I told you this before, the width of a car.
Right.
It's only a bit of water in like 1 mile of coastline.
Were you doing like some cliff jumps?
Yeah, no, the story was I went and bought a Black Widow catapult from the fishing tackle shop, which I wasn't allowed. My granny scooped me. So she told me to go and bring it back, and then she gave me some money for the arcade to play Street Fighter 2.
Right.
So went playing Street Fighter 2, met a local lad called Colin, and he says, "Here, mate, you want to go for a walk up the cliffs?" And I was like, fuck it, let's go. So went up the cliffs, and as we were going up, he went up one path, and I kind of went up another path. And I got to a point where I realised I couldn't go any further and I couldn't go back because it was just like sheer grass going up this cliff. And then I started to cry because I knew something bad was going to happen. I actually started to sing a song, which I'd heard in P7 at the time. That's the age I was. If I had the wings of a sparrow and the dirty arse of a crow, I'd fly over England tomorrow and shite in the bastards we know. So it was sort of random.
You must have been just like freaking out at that point.
I was 100%, and then just went. But over 100 feet and smashed.
Did you have to get airlifted or anything?
Got airlifted, yeah. So the guy who was with went and reported to the Coast Guard, and they came and lifted me to Coleraine. And then I was about 7 years in and out of hospital, getting various. I was the first kid to get an laser off frame, the one you see all the joyriders with these days. Yeah. So I was the first guy to get that done. First boy, it was a girl got it done before me, and we were going to amputate up until about the age of 17. It wasn't healing. And then a guy called Kerr Graham, who was an orthopedic surgeon, came in and put the new technology on me, and the leg got fixed. So about 10 to 17, I was in the hospital for 1 year at the longest stretch, 11 months at the longest stretch. So.
And what age are you now, D?
I'm 46 on my next birthday in November, 45.
So
46 coming.
You grew up in Belfast. You're 6 years older than me, so yeah. You were at the height of the troubles, like you were, right? How did that impact your early life?
It never really impacted upon me, Lenny, to be honest. I lived near Ardoyne, in a place called Mountain View. So Mountain View was kind of like the posh part of Ardoyne, the privileged part of Ardoyne.
Is there a posh part of Ardoyne?
So we were on the other side of the Crumlin Road, so we would go and watch the riots with a tin of Coke and a packet of crisps, you know what I mean? That kind of way. So it didn't, apart from obviously getting searched when you went into town, and it was just normal. Nobody I knew got blew up, or nobody I knew got, it would have affected my mum, her generation more, or her sort of friend group and stuff. But yeah, it was a pretty normal life for me growing up.
Nice. And like you, so I know you were, as soon as you started work, you didn't go straight into door work, did you? Or what happened there?
So I did really well up to GCSE level. It was A's and A stars, and then discovered cannabis, and as everyone does, and I kind of, that was the A levels, apathy came in, the A levels went out the window, and then that was it. I didn't go on to university. I went into my French A level and drew a picture of a horse and walked out like a rebel. Do you know what I mean?
Which explains all the tattoos and shit now today.
So yeah, it was kind of it was my act of rebellion, you know, fuck you to a system. And then from there I got into bodybuilding. I was sort of into bodybuilding around about the age of 18.
What brought that on?
Do you know, bodybuilding, boxing wasn't available to me in the area that I grew up in. Nobody I knew boxed. If somebody came to me and went, here's MMA or here's boxing, here's jiu-jitsu, I would have been all over it. Like, but it was like, bodybuilding was the suit of armour. Yeah. You know, I was like, let's build a suit of armour, you know. Yeah. So get into that and get into it in a big way. Started training in Macefield when I was in upper sixth.
I didn't know you trained in Macefield.
I trained in Macefield, yeah.
Right, okay, right.
Back in the day, like, so used to pick off school and go there.
Yeah, I used to go there with all my uncles. They
Is that right,
all,
yeah, they Norman, do you remember him? Big Norman. Big scurry dude with the glasses, big tall black hair fella.
That rings a bell. I know Jerry Cunningham.
Jerry, yes, sir. Yes, and Kyle. I don't know if you remember Kyle.
Yeah, I remember Kyle because he used to work in Macefield.
That's right, yeah, 100%.
Because we when we were kids, we used to just go over and like sneak into Macefield all the time.
Seriously?
But my uncles all trained in the gym,
right,
as well. So I could have went down and trained with them in the gym.
Gotcha.
I had the I know all those. They're all OGs for sure.
So it was a squash court, wasn't it? It was like with
yes,
mirrors.
That's right.
And it was converted.
Those gyms just don't. That type of gym just doesn't exist anymore.
Like the old Santor as well, I suppose too.
Yes, and you trained in Santor. Also, we had Paul on here a couple of weeks back.
100%. I listened to it. Yeah, and the Jamaican as well. The old pigeon shed in Jamaican. Paul was talking about breaking in, crime over with the guy that the first time Jared. Exactly. Yep. So I used to train there with Ronnie Whiteway and George Whiteway.
Right.
They were the two Olympic lifting coaches back in the day.
Right.
And then Lawrence, he's passed away now, but he was like really strong Olympic lifter and strong dude as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There were some quality days because that was like it was really early days in the physical culture sense because let's say Arnold became quite big in the late 70s, early 80s in the US. It kind of never really kicked off here until the 80s.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit, you know, maybe people were looking at it a little bit, but it didn't really expand massively. But like all of those characters that you had mentioned, you know, they were a product of that almost explosion in physical culture 100%. And bodybuilding and, you know, powerlifting, Olympic lifting. And it took off hugely in Belfast then. Like I can remember that. I can remember all of those, even though I was quite young, because my uncles were heavily invested in it. Like they were just bodybuilding flat out. Like
class and Santor.
Santor and in the old Macefield Leisure Centre. Did you compete?
I was
did you get on stage or anything?
Yeah, I did. Bobby Herdman.
Yep.
You know, so he ran a Mr. Ireland, which was separate from the NABA one, but he ran Mr. Ireland. I won that. I won my high class, so I did high class too.
Right.
Guy called Stephen Stewart or Big Hippie. He won the overall, I believe, back in the day. So yeah, I did that. Competed once, and then went to compete again the following year. But I got an infection in my bicep from injecting oil.
Right.
To get bigger biceps. Synthol.
Right.
Yeah. So that I had to get surgery to get that removed, and then that was the end of the competing like that. But yeah.
What you know, I'm sure there's like it's obviously a conversation that I have with like a lot of our students coming through. Like you know, in regards to, I'm sure, like if you're bodybuilding, you're competing on stage, you're going to be using some sort of performance enhancing drugs.
Yeah, it's the nature of the sport, isn't it?
It is. It's very much a part of the sport. How did, like, assuming that you were back then, because you were like fucking 18 stone plus.
Yeah, with abs.
How did that feel?
Yeah.
You know, back then.
You know, it was like kind of, you know, so it was almost like a metamorphosis. You're turning yourself into something completely different. Do you know what I mean? It's like I literally had to walk through doors sideways at one point. You know, so yeah, it was. I was a big 300 pound at my heaviest, 22 and a half stone, so 135 kilo. I bulked up at my heaviest, and then walking around relatively in shape at about 18 and a half. And then
what were you eating on a day-to-day basis?
A lot of calories, like just a lot. You know, waking up in the middle of the night for a tray of soul and fried chicken and a packet of ice cream Mars bars. Setting the alarm, you know, so getting up, just got really focused on it and really into it, you know, and that was the mission, you know.
Crazy.
You know?
Yeah. We like a lot of the guys that come through our academy, you know, they'll ask me questions on it, and I'm just like, look, you know, it wasn't my gig, but go and speak to someone who's, you know, who's been there and done it, like figure it all out first before you go down that route.
Yeah, you know, see the bodybuilding thing, it's like as well as I think one of the reasons, you know, it's obviously it's a male characteristic, you know, it's like an idea of what being a male is, being big and muscular and stuff like that as well. But the only people that actually garners attention from are older males.
Yeah,
you know,
it's peacocking.
Yeah, it's not getting you girls. Like it's not, you know, it's not improving your status in that area. So it's kind of like you look at a crowd at a bodybuilding, and it's generally full of older men.
Yeah,
probably a large percentage of which are gay.
Admiring each other.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, you know, looking back, you know, there's photos of my stepdad painting me with creosote fake tan in the living room with the super serum to dry it. And it's just the most, now it's like, wow, you know, it was like a completely different lifetime. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
But you know, it was definitely very challenging, very hard thing to be doing at the time. It required a lot of discipline.
Yeah, I'm
you know,
sure.
Christmas Day, you're up training. You know, you went and trained. You know, it's like anything that you want to get good at, isn't it? So,
would you, you know, if let's say some young lad out there now was coming to you and saying, "Here, D, listen, I'm thinking about going down this route," like, would you try to steer them away from it, or would you say to them, "Well, you know, if you're really committed to doing it, well, then here's what you have to do."
Yeah.
Like, what would your thought process around it be now?
Do you know what? Now, if somebody came to me, I would say, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because you'll probably find, you know, as I said earlier, if boxing had been around or fighting had been around, I would have got into that. It's like when you get to a root of why you want to be a bodybuilder or why you want to get big, the reasons are probably the same as the why you should learn how to fight. Do you know what I mean? It's an insecurity. It's like, that's generally what it comes down to. That's what bodybuilding was for me. It was an insecurity about being small. You know, so if I got big enough and nobody would fuck with me, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, even though I couldn't knock snow off a rope.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, that's the thing. But so it's like, find the thing, and if you take it back to the root of the thing is learning how to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Once you have that confidence, then everything else becomes a lot easier. You probably wouldn't feel the need to get big and massive and muscular. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless there was some sort of dysmorphia going on or a different reason, but
which is common.
Is a thing. Like,
so.
But for me, it's like, why do you want to get big? Once you answer that question, then you could maybe go down another route. You know,
what's the saying? You're built for a job in security because insecurity is the reason you're built.
Yeah.
God, there's the guy Dom. What's his? I can't remember. The bro science guy on Instagram. He says this here. You know, big guys.
Yes. Yeah.
Walks up to them in the gym. He's like, "Hey, bro, you're built for a job in security because insecurity is the reason you're built."
Yeah. That's it. Like, it's
class. But here, you know, I had never actually thought about it in that way. Now that you mention it, like most guys, it's definitely. I don't think it's to attract the opposite sex. I don't think it's that. So it must be almost like a defensive mechanism.
100%.
Peacocking.
Yeah. Which lacks substance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which lacks that underlying, you know, what it's supposed to represent.
Yeah, because if it does, you know, if it bypasses that, like what happens then?
Yeah. That was me. I was working on the door. I was actually working on a gay bar in the Parliament. And again, I was like 19 stone, you know, fucking traps out to here, huge. And anytime there was any hassle, like nobody would come near me. We would just go to like, there was a doorman called Jamie Crawford, who's a really accomplished Thai boxer. You know Jamie? Yep. So like he was 18, we were around the same age at the time. So like they would all go to him, you know, like was the worst person to go to, you should have went to me, you know, if you wanted to beat me. So that's the thing. It's like, it's just the intimidation or the appearance of being able to handle yourself. But it's not real. Anybody that's involved in combat knows that, you know, it's not a factor.
Yeah, the cauliflower ears do that now.
That's a better indicator.
It's the same. Everyone just looks at that and goes, I ain't fucking with that dude.
Yeah, and that's what we all want, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Yeah, it's peace and quiet.
Exactly.
So how long were you doing the door for?
I think I was doing the door maybe for about 10 to 12 years,
right.
on and off.
Jeez,
yeah,
that was a stretch, man.
Long time, like, yeah.
Right. Was there anything in between that, or like what was going on?
What else was I doing? So, door work. I was in Marks and Spencer's when I was 16 up until about 22. Hated it. Loved it at the start, and then got to the point where I absolutely detested it. And then a guy offered me a job in the door, and I did that. And I was like, "You're getting to hang out. You're getting 50 quid in your hand. Pays for your protein powder. You know, you're getting to have a bit of crack and fucking." Because I didn't drink or I didn't go out socially, it was like it was my night out. So this ticked all the boxes. You know what I mean? So I loved it at the door at the start. And then I eventually got to a point where I fucking hated it. You know, you do it so much. So, yeah.
you must have seen some crazy sights, I suppose, in Belfast on the door.
Yeah, you know, I think, you know, the biggest thing about the door, it introduces you to the less nice side of humanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Agreed.
About how people are when they're drunk.
Yeah.
You know. And
yeah, I work behind a bar,
Yeah.
and I always say, like, it's a crash course in human nature.
Yeah.
Like, dealing with drunk people is an absolute crash course. But at the same time, I don't know about you, but having, you know, dealt with drunk people so often for so long, from, you know, and obviously you've moved into business and stuff now, and we'll talk about that in a bit.
Yep.
You're still dealing with people,
Yep.
but it will never be as extreme
Yeah.
as dealing with someone who is like frantic, drunk, and
100%,
everything. It'll
yeah.
never be that bad.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just. But I think drink, you know, especially excessive drink, brings out the worst in people. It brings out traits which are already there and kind of maybe hidden and masked, and then they get drunk, and then it all comes out. You know, so it's like. Yeah, I didn't like it. Would destroy your faith in humanity after a while. You know,
Yeah.
you know yourself, like so.
Yeah, man. That's largely what drove me into fitness, because you see people deteriorate the more they're around alcohol and that sort of lifestyle, and it's just like, Jesus, they're actually. It's funny because you can just see them deteriorate, as in like they atrophy.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's
that's in the Arabic. The word alcohol comes from the Arabic word al-kahul, which means body eating spirit.
whoa.
It's an Arabic word.
Spirit?
Spirit, yeah,
Yeah,
spirit. That's where it comes
spirits.
from. Yeah. But it
Jeez.
eats you away, you know. So atrophy.
Yeah, don't drink people. It's not worth it.
No,
Gets us all into trouble.
it does.
So you were bodybuilding for years. You were on the door. When did you decide to stop training in that sense and start to move into combat sports?
So doing the door. Then I was. Where was I after that? I was doing the door. Was in the police for a short stint, which didn't work out. It wasn't a job for me. And then I left, and I had a bit of time where I didn't have anything to do, particularly a few pounds saved up and stuff. So I kind of was deciding what I was going to do with myself. And somebody had mentioned Frankie McConville as a Thai boxing coach.
Yep.
And kind of being afraid of combat or conflict has always been, you know, it's always been in me. I've always been just shied away from it, being afraid of it. Didn't like loud shouting or loud voices and stuff like that. And I think I got to a point. There had been a few incidences on the door where people had actually confronted me, and I'd backed down. Right. And then you go home, and that doesn't sit well with you.
Yeah,
You know, and it eats away at you. So I think that happened to a point where I decided, right, I'm going to address this. I'm going to be a 16-stone cage fighter. That's like I remember saying to my girlfriend at the time. So we were having a carry out. But yeah, so I got in contact with Frankie and joined Frankie's Muay Thai club and get into that. And then I had a fight in the Devonish against a guy called Tim McCrory, who ended up being quite a prolific MMA fighter. So fought him. But yeah, I basically just tried to pick him up and throw him out of the ring. Just sort of that instinct took over. I had a fight in Carlo. We drove down there, and then I went to Thailand for a month on my own, and I had 2 fights out in Thailand as well. So I think it was 1-3, and the Thai fight, which I did win, was actually set up, so they could bet on me. So the other guy threw a fight. So yeah, that was Thai boxing, and then my friend who was doing Thai boxing with me, a guy called Gary Mack, he owns Slim's Kitchen.
Yes.
Good guy. So he said, "What about this ground fighting? You know, if we didn't, you know, it was called jiu-jitsu, it was ground fighting." I said, "What's that about?" And he goes, "You're fighting on the ground." I went, "Sure, that's not real fighting, you know." And they said, "Sure, come on, we'll go and try it." So we went up to White Rock on a Wednesday and we tried it, and that was me. It was just fucking fell in love. I couldn't sleep at night thinking about it. It was like, hooked it completely, yeah. And that was it, just get into that big time.
Was your first session, I suppose for anyone who's not familiar, you got Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is done in the gi with like lapels, which is like judo and stuff, or you've got, well, they're calling it American Jiu-Jitsu now,
it's
like
change the terms. Yes,
stuff, so it's just like rash guards and shorts. What was your first session?
We started off, I didn't have a gi at the time, but we all started off doing gi. So it was a gi class.
Yeah, that was it in the early days, wasn't it? There was no real...
There was... The club I was with was Gracie Barra, and the coach was Graham Keys, and Graham had one no-gi class a week, which was a Tuesday. Right. And that was up in the Valley Leisure Centre, so White Rock was on a Wednesday, and then there was classes all throughout the rest of the week as well, but there was only one no-gi.
And Graham, from I'm not sure about the history here, but he was like one of the first black belts, and
100%,
if not the first
black belt in Northern Ireland. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It was him and John Kavanagh. John was the first Southern black belt. Graham was the first Northern black belt.
Yeah, because John Kavanagh's been a black belt for about, I don't know, 20
20
years or something, has
plus,
he?
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Crazy. And you were in Gracie Barr until you were blue belt?
Yeah, I was. I got my blue belt in a year. I was a white belt for a year, and then I got my blue belt.
Yeah, and just smashing people. 16 stone.
I was about 15 stone. They would call me Hulk. I actually had a Hulk emblazoned on the back of my gi. And and then I was a blue belt in Gracie Barra for about 5-6 years or so, and then I moved on. So I did. Yeah.
I want to do a little bit of dive into this here. So, because obviously, I would say the big connection that you and I have is based around jiu-jitsu. And I kind of cheated in a little sense before I joined SBG, because I was doing some no-gi stuff.
Yep.
With some of our guys.
Yep.
So whenever I joined SBG, it was because I wanted to learn to train in the gi.
Right. Yes.
So I did have a wee bit of foundational stuff before then, but ever since, started training in the gi, I've now tried to talk everyone into training jiu-jitsu in all forms.
100%.
Because I'm just like, look, it's gonna change your life. It's gonna give you a level of confidence that you will never have had before. I generally feel like, and I know you'll feel the same, is combat sports.
Yep.
Bodybuilding you had mentioned.
Yep.
But combat sports, I feel like the men especially, right? I don't know. I don't speak to many females. I know one or two. We actually have a girl on our course at the minute. She was a really good amateur boxer and stuff. But I don't know very many female combat athletes, so I can't, I can't say.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that they're just really nice people. Yeah. Like combat athletes, people who do jiu-jitsu, boxing, they're just some of the nicest people you'll ever
100%.
meet. And it's because they have nothing to prove.
100%.
Because their confidence levels are through the roof. It's not like they're not going to get involved in silly arguments about things, because they're just like, I settle things with through violence in a sense. What's it like the gentle art, isn't it?
The gentle art,
jiu-jitsu, right? It's not that gentle.
No, it's gentle for the guy who's on top. That's what they say. As gentle as he decides it's going to be,
I just feel like it just adds so much value to people's lives. It just gives them such a level of confidence, and I try to talk everyone into doing it. Yeah. Even if it's not your main thing. Yeah. Even if it's just like one day a week where you go and you learn to defend yourself. Worst case scenario. Yeah. Like worst case scenario situation, like learn how to deal with that one day a week, even if it's one day every 2 weeks.
100%.
Like, just start there.
Yeah, just if somebody has you mounted or pinned, or what do you do? How do 100%. Yeah, it's invaluable.
So how did you end up opening your own facility? Because I know, again, Paul was on here a couple of weeks ago. And Paul owned Centaur, and your first place was in Centaur, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah. First place was in Centaur. So, where was I? I was, when I left the police, I went back to doing the door, and then I left doing the door, and I became a cleaner. I worked for a company called QCS, and I was a cleaner, and I was delivering Chineses as well, right, up around Rathco. And when I was delivering the Chineses, and then the opportunity came up to coach a jiu-jitsu class in Centaur. Right. Because the guy who had been in there coaching the class was kind of fucking about and, a bit of a stoner or whatever, and wasn't really sort of doing a good job. So I went down to speak to Damien and Paul, and I had my whole lesson plan done out and my whole proposal, and they were like, yeah, come down and give it a go, So I went down and I took my first class on a Friday night. And I actually went down 2 hours before the class was due to start, and I taught the class in an empty room.
Can you remember what you taught first? First session?
I can't. But I remember going down and going through the warm up and going through it all. I think I was quite nervous, and I did that. And first class, I think it was like 4 people. One of my best mates, Danny McKiernan. Shout out to Danny, he was there. And big Davey Stalford, who's still training. He's one of the OGs of jiu-jitsu. He's in his 60s now, so he is. So
yes, Davey.
Big monster.
He trains Saturday morning, does he?
Saturday mornings in SBG, yeah. And I taught the class those guys. And my thinking back then was, if I could make enough money to buy my family a Chinese on a Friday night, and I was getting to teach jiu-jitsu and do jiu-jitsu. It's like, fuck, that's living the dream, like, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's like amazing. So that's where I started, and then just built it from there, really.
Were you competing before?
I was, yeah.
How were you getting on in the early days of competition?
Good. We 6 months. I did my first competition 6 months, and I took silver in the Irish Open. And then me and another guy, mutual friend Ronnie Malone.
Yeah.
We kind of got the bug to go, like, let's go travel and train or compete. So we went to Paris to do the French Open. I took bronze, and then we would just like randomly go away at the weekend to London and the different places just to. So we were the first ones kind of really to compete from GB at that time, like, so yeah.
Cool. Because people might be listening to that, right? And again, they might think, at least I know this for me, some people's objection to doing jiu-jitsu is it's complicated. It takes too long to learn. You have to, there's this sporting element to it now as well, you know, where you had mentioned you were going away competing. Like the scoring system can be, like if you were to start to explain that, because it took me a while, I know personally, to learn the scoring system. Like whenever people were saying to me, oh, you get 2 points for knee on belly and blah, 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 and I don't even know if that's the actual points. You know, Andrew, guy that works with me, like he'll come in and rhyme off where the points were, what was deducted for what, advantage for here, and I'm just like, fuck, I just try to submit someone, I don't know what is going on there.
100%.
You know, and I suppose someone seeing that, actually seeing jiu-jitsu for the first time. I heard a guy explain it a few weeks ago, Theo Vaughn.
Yes.
He's hilarious, right? And he said, he was making this joke about it, but he said, how would I explain jiu-jitsu? It's basically like two guys. He's like, there's two studs and they're trying to find something on each other, but neither one of them can find it. It's just like, that's probably the best way.
If you didn't know what it was, that's what it would look like.
Because it's like, the more jiu-jitsu gets advanced and there's two people whose escaping techniques are like on point, you would just be like, I have no idea what's going on here, because it's like someone's in a dominant position, someone's going to escape, they'll try to get the dominant position, but the other one's going to escape, and it's just like this constant back and forth. So I think someone seeing that for the first time, they could be like, whoa, that's a lot.
I suppose at a high level, that's you're going to witness that at a high level, aren't you?
Oh yeah, big time. But for like the average person, you know, Sandy, who, you know, one of my sort of main training partners, he said to me a few weeks ago, he says, like, if you imagine, like, most people walking planet Earth, their first day weight belts.
Yeah, that's true.
I was like, fucking hell, I never even thought about that. Like, but if you know, you roll with someone who's their first day doing jiu-jitsu, it's just like frantic, it's chaotic, and they give away everything, and they make so many mistakes. He's like 99.9% of people walking planet Earth, that's them. That's
what they're
that's their game,
that's their level,
which is scary. So for someone like that, you know, I suppose the fundamentals need to be, it's just dominant positions.
100%. Yeah, it's like one of the most common positions in a street altercation. It's like, you know, you get taken down, somebody sits on top of your chest, mounts you, and starts punching you in the head. You know, it's like showing people how to get out of that. You know, what do you do when it hits the ground? You know, how do you get up and how do you get away? You know, tactical stand-ups, you know, get-ups, you know, those sorts of things. I think is a good base point, isn't it, to start, you know, giving a real world context for what jiu-jitsu is. I think that's what gets forgotten about is jiu-jitsu. I was actually reading a post from Matt Thornton today. It's like jiu-jitsu and Vale Tudo about, you know, 20 years ago were inseparable. You know, when you were doing jiu-jitsu, you were talking about strikes. Now it's become, because it's got quite nuanced and there's a very much a sporting aspect to some people go down that route and get into, especially in the gi, very nuanced sports jiu-jitsu based games which have no real world fighting applications. You know what I mean? But, you know, for me, it's always remembering, you know, what this is about. You know, it's about being able to, you know, take somebody down, get on top of them, put them to sleep if the situation requires it, or get up off the ground, get the fuck away, you know, or defend yourself and defend the people around you. So it's about fighting, you know.
And so, again, I think you'll be best positioned to speak on this. So for, let's say for someone who, bouncers, police officers, you know, frontline workers. Like in that case, I'm just like,
why
That
not
is
doing this?
fundamental.
Yeah.
Like fundamental. I actually remember years ago I got into a bit of an altercation outside a nightclub in Belfast.
Yeah.
These guys, they were just bad boys, like, and one of them come up in a threatening manner.
Yeah.
I just chinned him, like I said, with a big left hook, but it descended into chaos.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And all the doormen got involved, tried to break it up. I think I had like neon belly. This was even before I was doing jiu-jitsu. I was like neon belly with some dude just going boom on the ground. And I just felt like a big strike to the side of the head, side of the temple. Didn't even know what had happened, but I ended up knowing one of the doormen, and he come over to me afterwards and he was apologizing. He was like, that wasn't me. And I was like, I have no idea what just happened.
Yeah.
One of the doormen who couldn't get me and the guy broke up,
Right.
started fucking kneeing me in the side of the temple.
Right.
Whenever I was, scrapping with this guy.
Yeah. Which is a dangerous way to be hitting somebody.
Yeah, I know.
To the temple,
but
like.
It's like, in that case, had he, I suppose, had the fundamentals down, 100%. Being able to take someone onto the ground and pin someone on the, you know what I mean?
Put a chokehold on them, but kind of, de-escalate,
and no one goes away with brain damage.
100%.
I have a cheek saying that there, but it's like, what I'm saying is these guys were coming up, they were threatening our company in a really bad way, and so, and
that's the tools that you had at that point in time.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I suppose from his responsibility standpoint, like, you're there to de-escalate a situation. You're not there to fucking. I'd have been happy for him to de-escalate it.
Yeah, we used to do back in. I worked in LA, and one of the things, if something was going to kick off, one of the doormen would give the other doorman a nod, and the other doorman would just quietly walk behind him and just like put him in a rear naked straight away, and carry him across the street, put him out.
Did you have any experience on the door? Did you take any experience from jiu-jitsu? Was there a crossover there?
There was a crossover,
right?
100%.
Okay.
So it was actually.
Did you notice a difference in having like an understanding of jiu-jitsu and how it carried over there?
100%. It was, obviously there was more. You had more confidence coming through, but also you had the tools, if need be, to restrain people and to bring them out and to de-escalate the situation.
Yeah. Yeah, because we've actually had a few cops now that's come through the academy, and I'm just curious. I'm like, how much combat training do you get when you? Well, you've been through it.
Yeah, so it was mediocre. Do you know what I mean? It was almost like a keto based kind of wrist lock bullshit. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and how to put handcuffs on, and it's just it was an in-house thing. So it was jobs for the boys. I think they were teaching, we called it conflict resolution skills.
Yes, I've heard this.
And we got taught that up in Lisburn. So, but it wasn't, instead of showing people actual grappling and strike defense and real stuff that's going to work, it was just this kind of BS stuff instead. So
yeah, because this is actually like huge in America at the minute. Where I know one of the Gracie guys, what's his name? Henner Gracie. Yep. Like, he's gone to town on this here, and it's like he's really highlighting what police officers can and cannot do. I'm almost sure like some sort of strangulation in the US now is illegal.
Seriously?
Yeah, they're not allowed to do that. But I think it was the whole George Floyd thing.
It was
probably exaggerated. He had a fucking throat. It was standing on his throat. Something along those lines. But it was. He was blocking off airways or something, wasn't he?
Yeah, okay,
I think it
was held on for a long period of time, wasn't it?
Had he known what he was doing, he probably would have just put on like a rear naked choke and put him to sleep, put the handcuffs on, and
100%. He woke up safe.
He woke up safe.
Yeah.
So I suppose there's a danger in it when someone doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Versus someone who knows what they're doing, they're just going to put you to sleep. You'll be out for a couple of seconds. Yeah. And you wake up again.
That's the danger. 100%.
You feel amazing.
Reborn, Actually, a funny story. One of the guys I used to do the door with, he would have choked people out and then put a lollipop in their top pocket and then set them across the road on the other side of the street, and you just see them waking it up and like what the fuck, looking at this lollipop, and like just downing off, just reality shattered, So
so did you you were a blue belt when you started teaching?
I was, yes.
What was that like for you?
A blue belt, so I was going back. Blue belt, that's go back 10 years.
Well, here we should say this as well.
probably.
You were a blue belt for how long?
I was a blue belt for 9 years.
So you were what, a black belt while you were a blue belt?
Yeah, a long time at blue belt. Yeah, 100%. So, but yeah. So
Yeah,
started
you were sandbagging.
Yeah, do you know what? It was just the nature of the situation. You know, the gym I was in, kind of, I didn't get the belt there, and then I left that gym, and then I went to John Kavanagh and became part of SBG. I became an affiliate gym for SBG, and then I was with John for a few years before John promoted me to purple, the next belt. So,
nice. How did that all come about? Because. So, again, for anyone that doesn't know, John Kavanagh is Conor McGregor's coach. And, you know, SBG, it's not Dublin, he's just SBG Ireland,
he's
isn't he?
SBG Ireland,
yeah. He's at SBG Ireland. I'm assuming that he's the main guy for SBG in Ireland, isn't he?
Yes, yeah.
And so now he's got affiliates in Belfast. He's got one up north as well. Strabane.
Yeah. Killarney, there's a good few.
Yeah, there's a good few. How did SBG Belfast come about?
So when I left Gracie Barra, I had to set up my own my own gym, and the name Maida came up. So I started Maida Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Belfast. Maida was the name of a guy who originally taught the Gracie's Jiu-Jitsu. Right. So he was a Japanese emissary who went over to Brazil and to start a political colony or whatever. So I was Maida. And we were training away for a wee while in the wee room in Centaur, the larger floor in Centaur. And people were saying, like, you know, we need to get affiliated with somebody for promotions and stuff like that as well. So and then I started to have a look around for like what would be the best fit. And I seen a video it was actually Jonathan McGugan, a friend of mine called Angel, big brown belt, really good guy. So he recommended that I'd go and look at John's gym. And we checked out some of the videos on YouTube, and the vibe was very similar to mine. There was Matt Thornton was in a tie-dye gi, and we were talking about, you know, real world jiu-jitsu, and John was on and was doing a video as well, and just the vibe was there, like. So I messaged him and we got chatting, and he came up and did a seminar, and we became affiliated.
Nice.
You know, so.
And that was in Centaur, wasn't it?
That was in Centaur, yeah.
I think I actually seen that video a few weeks ago. I think it like cropped up somewhere. Geez, you had lost weight there, like.
Yeah,
you were lighter.
Yeah, I think I was like 77 kilo back then.
You just training jiu-jitsu all day, every day?
Yeah, 3 times a day. So 6 a.m. up in Davy Stalford's garage up in Monkstown, then a lunchtime class and an evening class, and then there was periods of time where we train more than that in the day. Sometimes we would just drive around. We used to have to sneak into leisure centres because we couldn't afford to pay in. So we'd sneak into Queen's PEC, pretend to get a cup of coffee in Clements, and then bounce up the stairs and use their mats, you know. So just training all day, every day, everywhere, you know.
And it just so happened that it kind of coincided with, so, you know, you partnered up with John Kavanagh, and it kind of coincided with the explosion of Conor McGregor.
Yeah, it was 100%. Yeah.
Have you ever rolled with Conor?
No.
So he kind of, you know, just sort of took off all at the same time.
100%.
And assuming then everyone wanted to fucking beat Conor McGregor.
Yeah, it was the McGregorites, as they called them. You know, it was always this big influx of people with top knots, you know, and tweed suits coming down the train. So yeah, it was kind of like a perfect storm in terms of the gym. We went from, like I maybe said it before, we went from like having 30 members to like 300 members within the space of a year and a half, near enough. You know, it was just McGregor's fame or phenomenon kind of hit at the same time.
Yeah, I'll just associated that with SBG.
Yeah, it coincided with us, you know, taking on the name SBG, moving from Aida to SBG Belfast, and it was, as I say, the perfect storm for the growth of the gym at that time.
I always so I think about jiu-jitsu and how much it crosses over to just general life. And I know we've kind of spoke about this here in a lot of detail, and I suppose, you know, I asked you the question. You obviously started when you were a blue belt, albeit you were sandbagging everyone.
Yeah.
And I suppose I asked you before, like, did you not feel under pressure? And I suppose this is a real white belt question to ask, because I think at that time I did. Did you not feel under any pressure to be able to, let's say, you know, just dominate everyone in the roles? And you had said to me, pressure's just, all pressure's self-inflicted. right? And I was like, that actually stuck with me, and I was like, you know what? That's actually so fucking true. And there's so many things that you can take, you know, from the mats into how you carry yourself in general
100%.
in everyday life.
It's, you've said it before, and it always resonates with me. How you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And jiu-jitsu is just it's a living analogy for life. You know,
Yeah.
it's like it's just the crossovers are just it's a microcosm of everything else. You know.
What's been what's suppose that aside, what's been your biggest takeaways from, you know, how has your journey in jiu-jitsu reflected your journey through life in maybe the last 10 years? Because you've been doing jiu-jitsu, what, 15 years now?
16, yeah 16 this month, 16 years this month. Yeah.
Did you got your black belt recently?
I did, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Cheers, thank
from
you.
John Kavanagh.
Was, yes.
Yeah,
Big honor.
Awesome day. Did how'd that feel?
Amazing, surreal, amazing. And yeah, and they talk about, you know, kind of like once you're a black belt, the learning just starts. Very much a feeling of that afterwards. It's like, I think I suppose in combat sports or in jiu-jitsu, the black belt is like, seems to be the goal, especially when you're starting out. And then you realize that when you hit the goal, it's like, okay, that's out of the way now. Do you know what I mean? There's like a certain amount of like freedom just to get better now as well. It's a strange kind of thing, but the bottom of one mountain's the top, or it was the top of one mountain's the bottom of another mountain. So
yeah, it's so funny. Like, I mean, I actually think I done a video in here must have been a few years ago, because I was just like, right, that's it, committed to getting my black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And now I got my purple belt recently, and I'm like, holy shit, I don't even know what just happened there over the last few years.
100%.
It's almost just like a complete blur. And I suppose that actually happens in life as well.
Yeah.
You don't really, we're talking about metaphors when it comes to life here. You don't really see yourself progress. And I actually said this to you a few weeks ago, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but a lot of the guys who I train with now are, and what I've kind of seen of training with these guys over the last few years, a lot of the guys I roll with, they're all purple belts and brown belts.
yeah, yes, yeah.
And so you don't even notice how much you've progressed.
Yeah, because everybody's progressing.
Everybody's progressing
at the same
together.
time.
Yeah. And then I said to you a few weeks ago, I was like, I haven't rolled with any white belts in ages.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm going to go out of my way to, you know, just grab someone.
Yeah.
Because I think if my memory serves me correctly, when you're a white belt, I don't think I was probably the opposite end of the scale.
Yeah.
But, you know, I can imagine that some guys coming in fresh, they're a wee bit apprehensive, and they see coloured belts and they're just like, oh shit, you know, just let me grab another white belt and this is safe.
Comfort zone as well, isn't it?
And so I went out of my way to grab some people, and I was rolling with them, and I was just like, holy shit, this is like,
easier.
This is insane. It's not easy, because it's easier in a different way, because they're unpredictable.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
They're very
100%.
unpredictable.
Yeah.
They're doing shit where you're just like, oh, I haven't like dealt, like I don't even know what's going on right now. It's just so unpredictable that they don't do conventional things, which is a challenge in itself, because then you're kind of just like,
you're not playing by the
rules. And you talk about this all the time as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, where was I going with that? You generally, the rising tide raises all ships. So it's like, you don't even notice, and life is the same.
Yeah.
You're making progress and you don't even notice.
100%. I think it sometimes takes you to take a step back. You were talking about football, and talking about space, not pace.
Yeah.
To take a bit of space and to actually reflect on how far you've came in X amount of time. Do you know what I mean? And to actually acknowledge, you know, what you've been through and what challenges you've overcame, you know, both in jiu-jitsu and in life. And to go, over here, actually, I went through that, and I'm still here, and I went through that, and, you know, and I've learned this and I've learned that, and it's all evolution and it's all learning, you know. What
would you say to someone who's just starting out on their journey, you know, thinking about starting, or maybe just started, maybe being a bit impatient? Like, what would your take on it be?
You know, it's a lot. You'll always be able to get better at jiu-jitsu. I think that's one of the things that really attracts people to it. It keeps you doing it. You know, it's like no matter where you are in your jiu-jitsu journey, you'll always be able to improve and progress. So it's just set yourself out that this isn't something, this isn't a goalpost or a finish line that you're trying to reach. This is you for life. You're a guy that does jiu-jitsu, and you'll do so for as long as you're physically able to do so. You know, which I think when you've been in the game for a certain length of time, it's like you'll have to carry me off the mats. You know what I mean? It's like I'll be doing it until I can't do it anymore. You know, which will be a long time away. So it's like you're in for the long haul. So you know, show up, ask questions, be self-critical. You know, ask for feedback. You know, question yourself, what's working, what's not working, what do you disregard, you know, who's already where you want to be, you know, what's that guy doing, do what that guy's doing, you know, it's like success leaves clues, you know, so it's like, you know, be responsible for your own journey and your own growth and your own progress, and find the right people around you in the right environment and the right training partners, you know, people who don't mind getting tapped, people who don't mind, you know, it's like these things are important, you know, find the right environment's important, you know, and the right circle.
What if someone is, and this is purely a selfish question, but colored belts now, you know, what do they need to focus on for, you know, to continue improving? Because assuming that someone gets to that stage, is it just like a refinement of their jiu-jitsu game at that stage?
Yeah, it's... You know, I think we talk about kind of like purple belt as black, but when you get to purple belt level, purple belt being the third belt, when you reach that point, most people achieve purple belt within, like, I know, 4 years, 3, 4, 5 years. Yep. You know, it's getting faster now as we move on. But once you've reached that point, you have the mindset of a black belt, the thought processes of a black belt, which is, whereas white belt is kind of like learning, in the analogy of chess, white belt is like learning what the pieces do. Blue belt is like learning how to move the pieces across the board to achieve a checkmate. And then purple belt is like laying traps and minefields and pitfalls for the opponent to fall into. And then black belt seems to be a refinement through level of brown onto black as a refinement of purple. You know, more mat time, better timing. Yep. For me, there's always something to learn. You know what I mean? There's always, and especially we talked about this the other day, about actually taking time out to sit down and write out what your game is, what your jiu-jitsu game is, and then getting excited about wee projects within that. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, I'm going to learn, I'm going to do this, I'm going to, you know, guillotines for me at the minute, and, you know, and you know, feedback from competitions, right? Okay, be more explosive, you know, work on this. So the fact you're engaged in that hobby, which is constantly giving you feedback based upon your success or failure at it, it's like, it keeps you engaged, keeps you coming back, you know, so... Yeah, higher belts is like just keep working on what you pursue, where you what you're interested in. Do you know what I mean? If there's something that takes your fancy, or expand upon your own game, and just keep growing, keep building.
And I don't think I've ever actually shared this with you before, but my main goal for learning jiu-jitsu, I know I said, like, you know, I want to get a black belt at some stage, but it's actually to teach my sons jiu-jitsu. Like that's right. My main purpose for learning the art. That's it. Like this is something that I want to pass on to my kids when they're ready. You know, I'm not going to I'm not going to force them into it. I've had them down and stuff, and they'll do a bit with each other, but they're just
pursuing other things.
They're just pursuing other things. But I know for a fact, like whenever they're older, they'll want to pursue it. Like I know that for a fact, and so my main thing is to teach them. That's what I want to do, and that's why I want to learn jiu-jitsu. So, like, what would you say? Because you know you won't mind me saying this, and I've said to you many times, like beyond your technical ability, and I've rolled with you many times as well. You know, beyond all of that, I think your attributes as a coach are just like way beyond.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And so, what would you say to? Because assuming that someone gets the brown belt and black belt, now they want to start to pass their skill sets on. Like, what advice would you offer to someone like that?
You know, I feel I coach best when I roll with people. You know, when I really enjoy rolling. I love doing jiu-jitsu. So when I'm rolling with somebody, I'll stay, if I'm at a higher level on them, if I'm teaching them, I'll stay at a wee bit past their level. So I'm not seeming insurmountable. I'm just staying a wee bit past their skill level, so that they're having some success. You know, they're having a goal which is within grasp. Do you know what I mean? And you know, sometimes it'll get so far to a point where they catch me with something, and you know, and that's great. You know, and there's no, I don't care. I'm happy. You know, they're happy, we're having success. You know, so there's like a mutual benefit to both parties. So we're both growing. We're both learning getting a deeper understanding of the art. You know what I mean? So for me, the best way to teach is by rolling. Yeah. You know, you don't want to be the guy who comes out and just like smashes him 6 times in a row, and you know what I mean? Yeah. So you want to be the guy that he goes, oh fuck, your man's a black belt and I was able to do this sweep on him, or you know, so that person's going away enthused and excited, and you know, believing that it's possible to get to that level.
I'm smiling here to myself because like if I think about you know my own journey and rolling with you, I know what that's like. Like I've been, you know, the person there, and in the back of your mind, you're kind of like, he's kind of letting me do this shit. Like, I know you fucking mess me up here in a second, but at the same time, it is extremely rewarding, regardless of whether or not in the back of your mind you're like, I know he's let me pass this guard, he's let me take side control, which you do a lot. But at the same time, I'm laughing as well because I know as I've progressed over the last few years, there are times where you'll just put it on me as well. So you'll give a bit and you'll take a bit, and you'll give a bit and you'll take a bit, which is, I think an extremely beneficial skill set to have, because you have to give it and you have to take it 100%. As well.
It has to be an ebb and a flow, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? And that's like that's for me what sparring should be. You know what I mean? Like this relationship which is happening between the two people here, and it's a figuring out of things. You know what I mean? It's not about who's going to win. Do you know what I mean? Or who's going to impose their will. A lot of times it's about how to figure out. It's back and forward, and you know that's the roles that can go on for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, and you know, and you feel great after it. You know, and you've downloaded more jiu-jitsu. You know, you leave the room better.
Yeah, because we were rolling on Thursday, and Paul came in and he was like, "Is this for charity?"
That's right. Yeah. It was like 40 minutes or something.
Like 20 minutes, and you didn't want to stop. I didn't want to stop because like during that, I was like, I learned a lot from the last 20 minutes. You know, just you taught me something a couple of weeks ago, because I had dismounted and went to S-mount and then tried to take her back, and you were just like, nope, slip out. And again, for anyone, I know the jiu-jitsu lingo here, for anyone that doesn't do it, won't be familiar, but again, what we're talking about here is just learning in general. So you taught me something, and then we broke it down, and we broke it down in a live environment, which again I think is important, and that's the beauty about fucking hell, I just love it so much. So obviously I come from a combat sport background, which is a striking sport, and it can wear you down. Like it really can. Like I know guys that were super talented, just freaks, and turned professional, went to the wrong gym, shall we say? Maybe not the wrong gym, just like in a gym where it was like just hyper competitive, and you know you're every day's a fight, every day is a 12-round fight, and these guys were going and they're huge prospects and they were just getting smashed every day, and you know taking shots like that it's heavy on the body, it's heavy on your head, whereas I would imagine like even in jiu-jitsu, because there was hardly anyone in my class I think I was the only white belt for maybe 2 years that was going consistently anyway. Everyone else was like blue belts and purple belts, and so I was getting like dominated the vast majority of the time, albeit there was times I could use strength and athleticism, and that would get me by, but most people were more skilled than me. And so I was losing, if you want to call it that, the rounds, but it's not debilitating.
No, it's not. There's no head trauma.
Like you can keep showing up, and you can keep learning, and then you figure things out. Whereas, you know, something in like a striking sport, if it's not done right, it can be debilitating because you're leaving, and you're just getting absolutely
head trauma. Of course, you know? I get it.
So let's move it on a wee bit. So you've been in the SPG for how long now?
Ooh, how long? Let me see. 2000, Maida, 2014, 2015, I'd say about 8-9 years.
What's been the biggest challenges you've come up against in terms of running a business? Because it's a whole, I mean, if, you know, working on the door is a crash course in human nature.
Yeah.
Owning a business is a crash course in personal development.
Right, okay. Yeah.
What's been the biggest challenges for you in that aspect?
You know, I've went through a lot of things within the business, you know, people leaving, people starting up their own gyms and bringing people with them. And, you know, ultimately everything's a reflection. Everything, you have to accept responsibility for the most part for everything that happens to you. Do you know what I mean? You can play the blame game to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, things happen generally as a consequence of your actions or inaction. You know what I mean? So for me, I've been through various situations now, and every time something happens, I get feedback on what not to do the next time. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, you just learn how to read people better. You learn the importance of not just having members, but having the right type of member. Do you know what I mean? You learn the importance that money isn't the most important thing, but the people and the quality of the service and the enjoyment and the love of and the passion for what you're doing is the most important thing, and that the money kind of just looks after itself after that fact. So I've been through that and I've learned that, and you know, and now I feel like I'm in a position where I understand how things should be run and the atmosphere that the place should have. And again, like say, you know, your environment or your world is a reflection of you. Do you know what I mean? So I always found that if I wasn't in the best of places, that the gym wasn't in the best of places. Yeah. And where I'm at now is like I'm in a really good place. And we chatted about before, I stopped drinking alcohol completely 6 months ago. And my brain's just firing on all cylinders at the minute, and I'm buzzing, loving life. And you know, you walk into the gym, you'll feel that in the gym at the minute. You know, it's like, so if I'm in a good place and I'm developing myself and moving forward and doing the right things, and everything will be okay. You know. So
yeah, I heard someone say the other day, you know, the way they say that bad things happen in threes.
Oh, yeah.
Someone said that that's not necessarily true. It's just that what tends to happen, like if one bad thing happens to a person, the person usually turns to shit, right? And so the bad then is just to continue. You know, like someone, like they maybe they lose their job, and as a result of them losing their job, they don't get up early in the morning, sleep in, start playing Call of Duty all day. Next thing, their girlfriend's at them because they're like, you know, you're not the same person you were previously, right? And so their girlfriend leaves them, and then as soon as their girlfriend leaves them, now they get into some other relationship with someone.
Psychopath.
And next to it, it's just like they lost their job, lost their girlfriend, end up in a relationship, got this girl pregnant after 2 weeks, and it's just like bad things happen in three. No, it didn't. It's the fact that whenever the bad thing happened, you responded to the bad thing. And I suppose what you're saying as well is, like, when good things happen and you tend to focus on that, then you gravitate towards, well, how much more can we compound onto this here? And then I suppose when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yeah, 100%. It's quantum mechanics there as well, isn't it too? It's like, yeah, I definitely feel it's like once you start moving in the right direction, you know, and you start making good decisions, and it becomes harder to make bad decisions. You know, so yeah.
Cool. I'm going to ask you a pretty deep one here, Dee.
Go for it.
Are we humans having a spiritual experience, or are we spirits having a human experience?
So I think it's the same thing. Do you know what I mean? I think, you know, there's so much nobody really knows. Nobody that I know knows what's going on. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, me and Paul McElroy will be back and forward sort of about the whole simulation theory, and you know, and there's evidence to suggest that it is.
Tell me more about this.
You know, so it's like there's no way to disprove the notion that we are actually living in a simulation. I think it was the brains in vats thought experiment. There's no way to disprove that we're not brains in a vat being fed sensory input. You know, and me and Paul actually talked about it before. Perhaps we could be two soul-like creatures on the planet Kronos, you know, playing a virtual game, you know, and then one day we'll take the helmets off and go, you know, there, speaking that tongue, that language, whatever it is. So regardless of that, it's a very real game that we're playing. Do you know what I mean? And there's definite consequences to it, and it's free will. And yeah, you can go down two roads. You can go down a good road, or you can go down a bad road, and nobody's really stopping you from doing either. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I think, I don't know, we're here to learn something. We're here to get better. Do you know what I mean? We're here to see the beauty in things. We're here to make meaningful relationships and make people's lives better and make the world better. And I think that's very much a beautiful thing and a spiritual thing. And I think that's the only thing that actually brings value and joy to what we're doing here.
Yeah,
you know?
Agreed, mate. Agreed.
So.
I'm still, every time I ask someone the question, you know, I hear a response like that, and then I gravitate one way, and then I hear a response, and yeah, I mean, I think a big part of my sort of thought process was I'm assuming that we're just biology.
I suppose the question is, what is a human? Do you know as well?
That could go down the route that you were saying previously.
Yeah,
Are we just in some sort of crazy metaverse or some shit?
Yeah, it's just like literally like with the biological being that we are is a meat suit, as Joe Rogan would say. You know, it's a biological machine inhabited by a life force. You know what I mean? And it's a
and is that life force just neurology, or is it you know, is there something beyond that?
Yeah. I would definitely feel there's something beyond that.
Yeah.
You know?
So yeah, based on what you said, but someone said to me before, energy can't be created or destroyed.
Yeah.
So what happens to your energy then?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. You know, I had an experience. My mother passed away a couple of years ago, and I was there when she passed. And when she passed, I was in the hospice on the Antrim Road, and outside, and there was very much a sense of she hadn't left. Do you know what I mean? And at that point, it was nighttime, she was in the streetlights, she was in the leaves, she was in the wind. There wasn't a sense of something that departed and something was gone. It was, and well, that was just my own internal take on it. I don't know, but I go by my gut and by how I feel, and I definitely feel like, you know, so yeah. It can't be created nor destroyed. Yeah.
If there was a question that I should have asked you but didn't, what would it be?
God, now you put me in the spot. I think you covered everything. But yeah, I'm very happy to be here today and the chat to you, man. And yeah, so
no problem, Dave.
Thanks for
Appreciate the time.
No,
Thank you very
100%.
much for coming on. If people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
I'm always in the gym, so yeah. And if you want to do jiu-jitsu, you know, come give us a shout and do some jiu-jitsu, or find a good gym that does jiu-jitsu and do that and train and be happy and live your best life. You know.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Dave. Appreciate it, mate.
Thank you, man. Pleasure.
Legend.
Bye.